Okay, so I hear pretty commonly that people like to say this thing: I wish I were a bird. I wish I were a dog, right? I wish I could live a simple life as the animals and not be bothered by the cares of human life and have to worry about so many things. And I wish I were just not conscious in the way that a dog isn't conscious, right? And I get where this comes from. I see the appeal because birds in the sky seem so carefree, right? They don't really have to bother about homework or stress about working with other people. So I see where this appeal is. But every time I hear somebody say something like that, I always think about whether it really is better. Not because objectively it isn't better. Like, I agree with you that a bird has less stress. Okay, fine. I'll grant you that a bird doesn't have as much worries as a human. But if you were the bird, you wouldn't be aware that you were a bird. And you wouldn't be able to appreciate the level of stress that you wouldn't appreciate that you have less stress than a human, right? You just wouldn't be experiencing the welfare, right? So if you, as the bird, don't experience the welfare of, well, not being a human, then is it really better to be a bird? Because you can't experience it, right? The only reason why you know or you think a bird is, the reason why you know a bird is objectively better in terms of life is because you are human and you can make that comparison, right? So I think you get my point. So the question is, even though it's objectively better to be a bird, it may not be subjectively better to be a bird. So, pretty interesting, right? And so the title of this video today is, some things are better objectively, but not subjectively, right? And then there lies the question, which one should we prioritize? So I have a second case for you, which is this. Is it better to be blind from birth or blind after 5 years of seeing? So logically speaking and mathematically speaking, since sight is better than no sight, 5 more years of sight is objectively better than no years of sight, right? Because, well, that's assuming we are prioritizing sight, then more sight is better. But subjectively speaking, if you've never seen before, you will never know what you're missing out on. You never know truly what seeing is. And therefore you can't make a comparison, and I dare say that having the ability to compare makes suffering, as in disadvantages, worse than they actually are, right? Whereas the person that had the 5 years of sight, that was able to see for the 5 years, now knows what he's missing out on. And that could possibly cause the suffering to be worse, right? And so subjectively speaking, the guy who, well, was blind only after 5 years could be having a worse life than the guy who's fully blind. Whereas objectively speaking, the guy who's 5 years then blind had 5 years of bliss where he could see. So, it's therein lies the problem. There's another case, and this is a case about assuming there is no existence after death. Now, before the Christians come and flame me for, what are you talking about death? That the fact that there's no after. Why are you talking about death as if there is no afterlife? We can think hypothetically, right? Anyway, let me just move on. So, let's assume that there is no life after death, right? It's just non-existence. Many people fear that because they can't wrap their heads around the fact that they will be missing out, that they won't be experiencing what happens after they die, right? But this is something that I took from Sam Harris, and he says that actually you won't be missing out when you die because it's non-existence. You can't experience non-existence. It's the same with experiencing what happened before you were born. It's just it just doesn't exist. You were just born, right? You will never have experienced what you were before you were born. Same goes with when you are in deep sleep, right? You basically just teleport. You don't or when you just teleport. You don't, assuming you don't dream, right? You cross temporally, and there is no experience at all. So, objectively speaking, right, if you look from an outsider perspective and take a look at the big picture, obviously, death is bad because you won't be around to experience. But if you are the person that dies, you'll never know what you missed out. You just won't be around. So that's another example. But yeah, those are 4 interesting examples for why sometimes, objectively speaking, it's better, but for the person, the subjective point of view, it isn't. And that's all I have for today. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.